What if the biggest obstacle between you and the body you feel confident in is not your discipline or your workout, but a silent blockade inside your cells? Most women struggle with stubborn belly fat and constant fatigue without realizing their body is, quite literally, on fire from the inside. This is chronic inflammation. It blocks fat burning, it disrupts hormones, and it leaves skin looking dull and depleted. I am a former pharmaceutical executive and women's health researcher. After reviewing recent studies from Harvard and from the British Journal of Nutrition, one pattern became impossible to ignore. When inflammation drops, fat loss resumes automatically. Now, here is where this gets interesting, and where most advice completely fails. Lowering inflammation is not about taking one miracle compound. The female body does not work in isolation, it works in sequence. That is why current research points to a synergy effect. Three specific compounds, each taken at a different time of day, each targeting a different biological switch. One works in the morning to calm the gut and shut down constant cravings. A second works during the day to restart cellular energy and metabolic signaling. And the third works at night, while you are in deep sleep, repairing insulin sensitivity and lowering inflammation at the source. When these three gears finally lock together, something shifts. Water retention drops, inflammation quiets, and the body stops clinging to fat for protection. This process is what I came to think of as my 5-gram protocol. It is a framework I developed after years working in women's health, reviewing clinical research, and applying it carefully to my own body as a woman. And what surprised researchers most is this: the smallest compound turned out to be the most critical. Let's start with the first one. Because according to the latest research, it can increase satiety hormones by up to 10% and improve sleep-driven fat loss at the same time. Compound 1. Glycine, the quiet firefighter inside your body. Think of your body like a house, a well-built house with small fires burning quietly behind the walls. The heat never fully goes away. This is what medicine calls silent inflammation. It does not cause sharp pain. It does not announce itself, but it continuously interferes with metabolism, hormones, and energy use. Over time, it keeps the body fatigued, swollen, and mentally foggy, and biologically inclined to store fat as a protective response. This is where glycine becomes relevant. Glycine is the smallest amino acid in the human body. Because of its size, it is often overlooked. But biologically, its role is anything but small. A comprehensive scientific review, published in 2023, examined glycine's effect on chronic low-grade inflammation. The findings were consistent. Glycine reduced the production of key pro-inflammatory cytokines, including tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin-6. These molecules act as long-term inflammation signals. When they stay elevated, the body remains in a persistent stress state that suppresses metabolic flexibility and promotes fat storage. Glycine helps reduce this signaling by turning down a central control pathway that keeps inflammation switched on. This mechanism is especially relevant for women over 60. Chronic inflammation interferes with insulin signaling. When insulin signaling is impaired, glucose is no longer used efficiently and is redirected into fat storage, often in the abdominal region. Research published in the Journal of Endocrinology shows a strong association between low glycine levels and insulin resistance. When glycine availability improves, glucose utilization improves. Cells regain the ability to use fuel instead of storing it. At its core, glycine does not burn fat. It removes the signal that tells your body to store it. No force, no metabolic stress, just clearer signaling. When inflammation quiets, insulin signaling improves. When insulin signaling improves, Metabolism becomes responsive again, and when the body no longer perceives threat, it stops holding onto fat as a safety measure. This shift is biological, not discipline, not restriction, not conflict with your body, just restoring conditions where the system can function as designed. Compound 2. Collagen peptides, the gut barrier that quietly controls appetite. Once inflammation begins to settle, a second issue often remains: biological control, not willpower. For many women, fat loss stalls not because they eat too much, but because the body sends constant hunger signals and stays mildly inflamed through the gut. Collagen influences fat loss indirectly by addressing two drivers common in women: chronic gut-related inflammation and persistent hunger. Research reviewed in 2024 points to collagen's role in strengthening the intestinal barrier, specifically, structures called tight junctions. Tight junctions act as seals in the gut lining. When they weaken, inflammatory signals leak into circulation and keep the body under constant low-grade stress. By supporting gut barrier integrity, collagen reduces immune activation. Fewer inflammatory signals enter circulation. The system stays calmer. A randomized controlled study published in the British Journal of Nutrition examined collagen peptide supplementation in active women. The results were specific and measurable. After consuming collagen, participants showed increased satiety, hormone signaling, including glucagon like peptide 1. At the following meal, energy intake was reduced by approximately 10%. No restriction, no conscious effort, just earlier and clearer fullness. This matters. Persistent hunger is not a failure of discipline. It is often a failure of signaling. When satiety hormones respond properly, eating behavior regulates naturally. This is why collagen comes second. Glycine lowers inflammatory pressure. Collagen stabilizes the gut and appetite signals that keep inflammation and overeating cycling. Now, this next one surprises most women. Compound 3. Creatine monohydrate, the metabolic push once the system is ready. With inflammation quieter and appetite more stable, the body enters a different phase. This is the activation phase. This is where creatine belongs. Creatine is often misunderstood, especially by women. It is labeled as a muscle builder and dismissed out of concern for bulk or weight gain. This is not about changing body shape. It is about changing how efficiently your cells use energy. Creatine's primary role is cellular energy support. It helps cells produce and recycle energy more efficiently, especially under physical or metabolic demand. Research examining creatine after physical stress found reductions in inflammatory markers, including tumor necrosis factor alpha, by up to 34%. This reflects lower inflammatory stress and improved cellular protection against oxidative damage. A large meta-analysis published by the National Institutes of Health evaluated adults using creatine alongside exercise. The results showed a significantly greater reduction in body fat percentage compared to exercise alone, approximately 0.55% additional fat loss. The effect was driven by increased mitochondrial activity. Cells became more efficient at using fat as fuel. Not aggressively, not unnaturally, simply more efficiently. Creatine supports higher cellular output without pushing the system into stress. The result is more usable energy, less inflammatory residue, and a stronger metabolic response to movement. Not overload, not excess, just a system that can finally do more with what it already has. The synergy moment. The order is the effect. This is how the compounds are taken for best results. First, glycine at night. Taken before bed, glycine lowers inflammatory signaling and improves insulin responsiveness while the body is at rest. This is when repair and recalibration occur. Second, collagen peptides in the morning or early day. Taken earlier, collagen supports the gut barrier and improves satiety signaling. This reduces inflammatory triggers and naturally lowers daily energy intake. Third, creatine monohydrate during the day. Ideally paired with movement, taken during the day, creatine supports cellular energy production and improves the metabolic response to activity. This is where increased mitochondrial activity translates into greater fat utilization. Doses vary in the research. But in my own experience as a woman, and after years studying this science, a simple, moderate range worked best. For me, that was around 5 grams per compound per day. The sequence looks like this: inflammation quiets, insulin signaling improves, metabolic output increases. Early changes often include less bloating, steadier energy, and reduced hunger noise. Longer-term changes follow: better response to movement, gradual fat reduction. This is not about forcing fat loss. It is about restoring the order in which the body is willing to let it happen. That is the synergy